Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to the next episode of the Brio in the Box podcast. What's new?
Well, we just finished the Open.
Yay. The Open is done.
15 years?
15 years. We've been in it every year since the beginning.
Yeah. I continue to dominate nobody.
Hey, that's not fair. You beat me in one of the workouts for sure. So you dominated at least one person in one workout.
Yeah. I wouldn't even say dominated. Just, I guess I did better than you on that middle one. Okay, I did dominate you.
Yeah, and I haven't done 25.3 yet, so still we'll see.
Yeah.
It's the tiebreaker. 25.3 will be the tiebreaker.
You're going to beat me on that one for sure.
I don't know. The calorie row?
Yeah. But if it was biking instead of rowing, then you would struggle. But you're a pretty strong rower. All things like okay. Size considered.
Yeah. My stroke length's not awesome.
My barbell cycling is subpar.
As is mine, though.
But you're pretty good with weights, so I think you'll be. And we're both okay at wall walks.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Comes down. This will be the tiebreaker, I guess. Well,
my money's on you.
Okay.
I believe in you.
Thanks for that. Appreciate the fan club.
Yeah. What have you been up to?
Oh, so speaking of 25.3, I got to do a super cool new thing I've never done before this week. So I got invited by the CrossFit media team, the games team, to come down to Albany, New York for the live announcement of 25.3 to join this time the broadcast team. So not the judging team, which I've participated in before, but the broadcast team as the color commentator on the live announcement, watching the three dudes, the frat party, as they called it, throw down on the workout. So Dallin Pepper, Jason Hopper, and James Sprague, and then special guest Tyson Bagent. So that was super cool. I've never done anything like that before. I've been chatting with you in the closet here for a long time, but live broadcast is a whole different thing.
Yeah, that was pretty exciting. Atlas and I were watching it together, and he kept being like, oh, that's my mom. I'm like, I know. She's like famous on the internet now. It's pretty wild.
I got a few seconds of screen time. It was pretty fun.
It was, and the funniest part was when you were standing beside that one giant. What's the guy's name?
Travis Bagent. So Tyson Bagent's dad.
And do you know how big he is? Do you know?
He's a giant. I don't know. I mean, he looked even more giant next to me.
It looked like they gave him the box to stand on instead of you. And it was hilarious looking at the two of you. Yep, this is the same species.
I know. I was like, we look like a Chihuahua and I don't know what, a husky or something.
Yeah. So what is it like? What did the day look like? Did you just jump in and have at her, or was there a lot of prep work done?
So we were on site at CrossFit Spur in the morning, and then you get to do a dress rehearsal, run through with the whole broadcast team, everybody working all together. It's super cool to see the behind the scenes of pulling off something like that. So what seems like a relatively simple live broadcast of this open announcement and people doing some workouts in a CrossFit gym, the number of people behind the scenes that it takes to pull off something like that was incredible. And I was saying, I wish I would have done a head count.
Oh, really?
Of how many people are here from all the different departments, partnerships for the sponsors, obviously with the athletes, obviously with the games team. So that's Adrienne Bosman and Heather Lawrence that are the head of the competition, the judging team, the graphics team, the media team that does all the social media, the broadcast team. There's an entire semi truck for the live broadcast out in the parking lot with a director and a producer. There's a set manager, like unbelievable. The number of people in kind of a small space. It's just a CrossFit gym, so a very nice CrossFit gym. But I was just blown away by the number of people, and everybody there shows up to deliver excellence. That's what they're after for their little piece of the puzzle. Everybody's trying to do the very best job and the absolute most impeccable execution that they can of something like that. So it's super cool to see that, to gain an appreciation for what goes into that. And I kept saying to people, I wish there was a way for the community to see this, to have an appreciation for all of the work that's going into this and the number of people that are trying their absolute best to deliver the best for the community, for the CrossFit community, so we can enjoy the open and have fun.
Yeah.
You know?
That's why it's kind of discouraging when you hear people complain about paying $20 to participate in the open. And they're like, what do I get out of it? Like, what do you mean, what do you get out of it? Do you know how much work goes into these things? It's so much with so many people. They're all trying their hardest to do a really good job just so you can watch a cool thing to hear about a thing you get to participate in. Mm-hmm. It's all a part of a bigger piece. We all kind of contribute to be able to watch for free these cool spectacle events. So for me, it's $20 is... I've wasted $20 on much stupider things. So I'm fine to just throw my money in the hat, even though I have no ambition to do anything. But it's just a fun thing to be a part of. And why not help the other people that are putting all of this effort in?
Mm-hmm. And I think just in general, as a life philosophy, if you like things, you should support them.
Sure.
And now the more I've been involved in it, the more I just can't understand or be okay with the people that do the open workouts, watch the open announcements, but won't just pay their $20 to make sure that this thing continues. I just feel like that's the equivalent of showing up at, say, the Sask Marathon and running alongside everybody, which is technically allowed. You can do that, but refusing to pay an entry fee, refusing to wear a bib number, and yet still participating in the thing, gaining all the benefit from it, and yet refusing to support it in any way or legitimately affiliate yourself with the thing. So in general, if you enjoy the open, if you do the open, if you watch the announcements, even if you watch the games, it's like in the course of that whole season, for sure you're getting $20 worth of enjoyment out of that.
Absolutely.
A mediocre bottle of wine's worth of enjoyment out of that. And then, people will go, oh, I don't want to give my money to CrossFit HQ. It's like, HQ is me. HQ is the media team. HQ is all these people with names that, took time out of our week to go and try to make something like that happen. And everybody contributes in their own little way. So if you enjoy it, you should support it.
It's really strange when people get very upset about these imagined entities. They blame corporate whatever, and they get so weird, and they act like it's this gloomy cloud that just is trying to do wrong in the world. And that's not what it is. All of the people that I've met through CrossFit have been really good people, and they're trying to do their best, and they're trying to put something great out there in the world for other people to benefit from. So why not support the thing that has benefited you tremendously through your life? Your health, your community, all that kind of stuff comes from CrossFit, and the greater world of CrossFit started it all. So I think we all not owe something, but I think we should just be appreciative enough to, pay it forward, I guess.
And I think it's a life philosophy I try to carry through. Having seen the inner workings of large operations, having been a small business owner, I now just feel like if someone is doing something well, that I support it.
Yeah.
I like music. The musicians that I like, we go to concerts, I buy the t-shirt, right? I support their art. I support what they do. If there's a small business that I like, I'll try to promote it without any benefit to myself, or I'll try to purchase from them and maybe pay a few extra bucks to buy local or support somebody running a business in the way that I would like to see more businesses run.
Yeah.
Brio, we made a decision a little while ago. We don't offer discounts anymore. Brio's worth what it's worth. And if you like what we're doing and you think it adds value to your life, that you should support our ability to continue offering that level of excellence to the community here. So I think if more people thought of the world that way, it allows you to recognize and really pay attention to the positivity that you see out there. And you go, I vote for things with my dollars, and these are the things that I vote for.
Yeah.
More of what I want to see in the world.
For sure.
Yeah.
We went to Mexico recently, and we went and visited a CrossFit gym while we were out there, which we do most of the time that we visit other cities. And after the cab ride, the drop-in fees, you bought a shirt, we all bought a coffee from them, the cab ride back, it ended up probably being close to $150 for the two of us. It was very expensive for one workout, but it was a great experience. They're doing an awesome job. It was a great gym. It's nice to meet those people and support them and help them, because we know what it's like. It's tough running a business, especially in these modern times where everything is kind of all over the place. So I'm fine to support the people that are doing a good job and try to be helpful with them as much as I can.
Yeah. And for us, when we're in a different location and we can spend some tourist dollars supporting a variety of things, you could do an excursion, you can go to a restaurant, you can go to a bar, you can choose to spend your tourist dollars on lots of things. Especially when there's a CrossFit gym doing a good job, and shout out Bahia CrossFit, it was a good experience, great coaching, nice facility, nice people, welcoming community. You're like, heck yeah, I want to see more of that. So again, with my life philosophies, I always pay the drop-in fee. If they do a good job, I leave them a 5-star review on Google after. I'll often buy a t-shirt or buy a patch or do something in that way to support the broader community of CrossFit when they're doing a good job.
Yeah.
Love to see it.
Yeah, it's great.
So as we've been doing on the Brio in the Box podcast for over a year now, we've been taking conversations, questions, topics from within the community and using this as the opportunity to have more long format discussions. One that's kind of come up as a theme over and over again lately is this idea that's got me thinking, like, constantly varied functional movement executed at your relatively high intensity is necessary. Practicing functional movements like squats and deadlifts and doing step-ups and the things that you need to be able to live as a functional adult independently with quality of life for all of the years that you may get on this planet. It's necessary for health, for quality of life. CrossFit found a way to make doing that stuff fun.
Right.
And we spend a lot of our time showing and convincing and making the case to people that like fitness is fun. Fitness is fun. You show up. Intensity makes you work a little harder in a community, right? So you make some friends in the course of doing hard things together, and the variety keeps it interesting, and the keeping score turns it into a bit of a game or a sport. So CrossFit found a way to make what was necessary fun. But then what happens when life presents you with some challenges and fitness is no longer fun?
Yeah. It's a battle. I think we're all getting older, and we've been at this for a long time now. We're at, I guess. We all started feeling pretty good, feeling pretty young. And then as we get older, just more and more of these things start to come up. We're talking about injuries through, it might be you're playing soccer with your friends, or you jump off a bridge and blow out your shoulder, or, you know, maybe just even within the gym, you kind of tweak your back or something. Menopause, that's been a huge topic lately that a lot of our gym members have been discussing. Going through cancer treatment, all kinds of things have come up in the last few years, especially. And it's hard when all of a sudden you're throwing a wrench in your whole system and you have to completely change everything to deal with that situation.
So you get injured. Let's take that one. Probably everybody at some point in their life is going to experience an injury that inhibits your training in one way or another. A knee, an elbow, a shoulder, a wrist, whatever, a back injury. Take your pick. Almost always, there is still some things you can do.
Yeah.
Right? So say, you know, it's the knee. Coach Ryan's injured his knee at parkour.
Which is a hilarious
thing
sentence.
to say. Sorry, Ryan. There are many other things he can still do.
Yeah.
But we were having a conversation the other day that like, it's a bummer. He knows.
Yeah.
Ryan's a level 3 coach. He's been doing this since 2009. He knows logically that it would be better for him to continue to do something, the other things that he can still safely and effectively do, rather than nothing. But the reality is it's a bummer.
Yeah.
To come into the gym, to have to modify the workouts, to not get to do what everybody else is doing. It's just not as fun.
Yeah.
But does that make it any less necessary?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Still necessary. Doing those things is still necessary for quality of life throughout the years of your life, right? So how do we attack that mountain when the necessity has not changed? We still need to be doing and practicing functional movements, but now it's not as fun.
Yeah. And the good thing about what we do is it's infinitely scalable, right? We could have somebody come in with no arm and we would be able to make it work for them. So whatever your injury is, we can work around it. There's some things that are quite debilitating. If you have a serious back injury, you're very limited in what you can and should be doing. But if you've just got a knee or a shoulder or whatever, you can easily manipulate the workouts and make them work for what you've been doing.
And again, I mean, I don't know that I logically need to make the case. I think we all understand. Continuing to train around an injury increases your growth factors, right? It increases testosterone and growth hormone and all these healing hormonal factors that actually help your injury get better sooner. Plus just your overall fitness. When you do regain your full functionality, now you're not starting from this super low point. Now you have maintained a decent amount of capacity in other areas and you just need to bring up that one thing back to match everything else. So it makes digging yourself out of the hole much less of a hole.
Yeah.
You're not all the way down in the mine at the bottom. You're just in a slight divot.
Yeah. This is a philosophy that I've always really believed in. We all have to suffer, right? No matter what, you're going to suffer a little bit in your life. And as far as working out and injuries go, you can choose to suffer a little bit every day. You show up with your bum knee and do things that the other class isn't doing and still suffer a little bit because it's not as fun. Or you can just stop working out and you can push that suffering into the future. And if you do that, when you hopefully come back 3 months down the road or whatever, everything's going to be awful. You're just going to suck at everything because you haven't worked out for 3 months and it's going to be horrible. And you're going to suffer a whole bunch for a good month or two. Or you can be like, yep, it sucks that I don't get to squat for 6 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever. But this is an opportunity. I can use this to work on my pull-ups. I can maybe finally get a strict muscle up I've never done before. I can work on my pressing and my bench and all these other things that maybe previously were weakness. And now I can turn these into a possible strength so that, like you said, when you come back, you've got something now that you've improved in that time. I had Nell in the class today, and the workout just happened to be lunges and cardio stuff. And she's been doing a lot of extra lunging lately because she has some back issues. And anytime she can't really hinge or anything, we'll usually substitute lunges. So she's been doing way more lunges than the rest of us. And this workout came up and I was like, Nell, you've been training for this one for months. And she dominated everybody. She just crushed the lunges. She did well on the machine. She put up the fastest time of the day. And it's, you get to utilize those things that you've worked on that used to be weakness and now they're a strength. Mm-hmm. So why would you not choose that instead of just being like, well, I guess I don't get to work out for 6 weeks. You know? And then everything becomes a weakness again. Yeah. And it's hard to do because it sucks a little bit, but it's either going to suck a little bit now every day, or it's going to suck a whole lot 2 months down the road.
I've been feeling strongly lately, and maybe this is just a function of the psychological transition of being in my 40s now. If you were lucky enough to find CrossFit, to find the world's most effective way to build fitness and build health across the lifetime in your 20s or 30s, oh my God, so many people never get the opportunity, never hear about it, don't have a gym near them for a variety of reasons. They just don't. So if you were lucky enough to find it and learn about it at your peak developmental years in your 20s and 30s, say from 15 to 45 are your peak anabolic years, and you build this work capacity, when you get to that transition into the second half of your life, wherever it may be, sometime in your 40s, you need to do everything you can to hold on to what you were lucky enough to build and not let some obstacle of like injury or menopause or whatever it is, let that fitness slip through your fingers. Like you had it. You got to hold on to it with everything through these challenges, through pregnancy, through postpartum, through injuries, through ups and downs of illnesses and change of hormonal status and all these kinds of things. You need to do everything you can to hold on to it. Your muscle mass, your muscle function is literally the most valuable thing that you possess.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can't let it slip away. Now, obviously, there's going to be situations where you are mandated. You must not do anything for 2 weeks because you have sutures or whatever, right? There's going to be those types of things, but you just need to minimize the amount of time. And that doesn't mean you get your clearance. Like, okay, you can start doing some activity and you go right back to 100% intensity and start smashing on yourself. You're going to transition back into a nice, smooth, steady. I'm going to start up again. I'm going to start with some like lower intensity, maybe upper body stuff if I can't use my lower body, and just start incorporating what you can. And again, the quicker you can do that, the better once you've been cleared. And then you can start to rebuild all those other things once they've healed up and they're ready to go.
And I'll even make the point to say that even if you are on mandated rest for a short period of time, you can still focus on eating really well, sleeping properly. There's many other aspects that feed into your overall fitness that you can still work on even when exercise and training isn't specifically one of them. And those periods of time in the scheme of your life are short.
Yep.
I've had 2 C-sections. There's mandatory rest after those things. But, I still tried to walk around a lot. I did very gentle, like laying on the ground and doing glute bridges and seated dumbbell presses with very light weights and just moved around, try to keep blood flowing and just mentally happier and go outside and go for walks, like whatever you can that feeds into your overall health.
Yeah.
You got to try to do. And there's a reason that the banner on the wall in the gym says, make good choices.
For sure. And I think because it's a hard thing to do, we often have people ask, well, how do I do it? And you just have to do it. You just have to catch yourself when you're starting to slip. If you're incapacitated for a week or whatever, and you sitting on the couch and you're like, I could go for a pizza right now. You have to be like, that's what my bad brain is telling me. But my smart brain knows better that if I sit around for a week and start eating pizza and all the bad stuff, it's only going to be worse. And we're all grown-ups. We don't have somebody following us around all the time telling us, oh, nope, you're not going to do that. You have to do that to yourself. You have to be the one that's just like, okay, I know that we're supposed to deadlift today. I can't deadlift. I'm going to go anyways, and we're going to figure it out. We're going to do something else. And just be the one that's making those good decisions.
And exactly that. I don't think I need to make any more of a case for why you should continue to work out and make good choices through a challenge in your life. I think everybody conceptually understands. And then when people are like, well, how do I do it? We're here to say, you just fucking do it.
Yeah.
How do I get to the gym when I don't want to? I don't know. You just do. You just, instead of not coming to the gym, you just come to the gym. That's literally, it's not more complicated than that. And I think too many people are building things up in their head. There's supposed to be some answer that isn't just do things that are hard.
Yeah.
Get your butt to the gym. Even if it's not as fun, I'm sorry, it's still necessary.
Yeah.
And then eventually the fun will return.
We all know Jocko, podcaster, former Navy SEAL, like real intense military dude. And one of my favorite things that I've ever learned from him was that he would always talk about you can't rely on motivation because motivation is fleeting. Sometimes you feel super motivated and you want to do it and you're hardcore. And then other times you're like, blah, and you just don't want to do it at all. You need to rely on discipline. You need to be aware that if you don't do this, bad things will happen, and you just do it. It doesn't matter if you're motivated or not. You just do it. Like you brush your teeth and you wipe your butt after you go to the bathroom. You do it because you know it's the right thing to do.
And when you've built habits, I think what makes something a habit is you've built it into your life to the point that you feel weird if you don't do it.
Yeah.
Like you would feel weird if you don't brush your teeth for one day, let alone 7 days, let alone 3 months, right?
For sure.
Exercise should feel the same, right? Where it's just so much a part of what you do and your habits that you've built that you can barely imagine not doing it.
Yeah.
We actually recently had another athlete that's working around a knee thing, and she was saying to me, she's like, I really just like to be a weekend warrior. I really like coming to the weekend classes and stuff. Is it okay if I still come, even if I have to modify it? I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Yes, it's okay. Absolutely. That's exactly what we want you to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes people feel bad about needing a bit more from the coach. I was like, let me be the first to say, don't ever feel bad about that, about needing to modify or scale or being a burden to the coach. Absolutely not. That's literally what we're here for, is to help everybody get the best workout for them.
Yeah.
And I always say, if everybody was just fine and knew what they were doing, that'd be boring for me.
Yeah.
I'd have nothing to do.
I like the challenge of having to reconfigure what we're doing for somebody that can't do half the things we're doing. You know, I think I had that same person in my class today, and most of the stuff she couldn't do.
Yeah.
And I had to take a couple minutes to be like, okay, what are we going to do here? And I like figured it out, and it worked, and it was great. She got the right stimulus and she can still do it. Right.
Yeah.
It's totally fine.
And if somebody is willing to show up with that effort of being like, hey, I'm going to be here, I'm going to match that effort with, I'll do my best to help you get the best, safest workout for you. So I usually, when people have an injury, like to start with, let's make a list of all the things you can still do.
Yeah.
And often if you just sit down and take pen to paper and think about it, the list is quite long. You're like, okay, we're laying off a knee, we're laying off an elbow, we're not doing this or that. And you make this massive list, you're like, oh, there's still tons of things I can do. And then we try to build as much variety in the workouts that we do in the gym among those things so that we don't end up causing an overuse injury and something else.
Yeah.
And don't focus on the things you can't do. Focus on all the things you can still do. And usually you'll surprise yourself with how long that list is.
For sure. It certainly changes the way we structure workouts because you do end up doing a lot more repetition. There's just no way around it. If you can't use your legs, you're going to be doing a lot more with your upper body. Yeah. But back to our push-up challenge we just finished, there was a significant number of people that after we did a whole bunch of push-ups every day for 18 days or whatever it was, that were like, holy crap, my push-ups have gotten way stronger. Yeah, it's amazing how much better you can get at something if you consistently work on it. So again, it's all on your mental outlook. If you look at this as a burden, it's going to be a burden. But if you're like, okay, this is an opportunity for me to get better at some stuff that I've actually wanted to work on, then it's great. And you can get better at pull-ups and you can get better at whatever the thing is. You just have to change your mindset.
And I think that's important too. You mentioned that menopause is becoming a significant challenge for a large number of our gym members, for the ladies that have been with us for a long time. I heard it recently described that estrogen is the give a fuck hormone and that when it starts to drop, many women experience the challenge of they just no longer give a fuck about a variety of things.
Yeah.
That change of life comes with all kinds of possible changes to their relationships, changes to their careers, changes, to their general habits. I think knowing that, recognizing that, keeping focused on the long-term goal of you've invested in your health and fitness for all these years up to that change of life to give yourself a better future. And like I said, at that time, when your mental outlook maybe changes due to the hormonal fluctuations, you need to stay focused on the long-term goal and not let, like I said, the fitness, the capacity that you've built up slip through your fingers.
Yeah.
Just because there was a challenge at that time. There's a bit of a misconception out there about fitness that I resent, in that all forms of exercise are kind of equivalent and you just have to choose the one that you like. And so if you're not really liking this one at the moment, that you just go choose another one that you do like. And I'm sorry, no, that's not how that works. Not all exercise regimes are equivalent in the sense of getting you functional capacity to maintain independent living and quality of life in your later decades. They're not all equivalent. Certainly do whatever you enjoy as your fun aspect of your life. If you really love playing pickleball, play pickleball. Pickleball is not going to build you the functional capacity you need for your later years. Mm-hmm. If you enjoy Pilates, if you enjoy running, if you enjoy any of these things, great, do them.
Yeah.
Those things are not going to build the functional capacity that you need for quality of life and independent living. So that, like I said before, the necessity of doing these functional movements, squatting, deadlifting, pressing, spending time on your feet, going through full range of motion, having grip strength, carrying things. These are the necessary elements of being an independent human. CrossFit found a way to make them fun. Even when they're not fun, you still have to do them. So if you are invested in giving yourself a bright and fulfilling future, you still got to do those things.
For sure.
And don't let it go in that midpoint of life. And this is me saying this, that I'm not at that challenge of life yet, but I'll tell you what, my bone density, my muscle mass, my healthy joints, my functional capacity are my favorite things that I own. And so I will do anything and everything I can to preserve those things for as long as I possibly can through life. And staying focused on that long-term goal, I think keeps me in it for the day-to-day.
And I think just like we modify for injuries, we can modify for like hormonal disturbances as well. Maybe you're having hot flashes. Yeah, that sucks. It's super uncomfortable. It feels like there's not a lot you can do. But if we're supposed to do a 20-minute workout that day, and the last thing you can imagine doing is just grinding away in the sun for 20 minutes, you can do it as intervals. You're going to work really hard for a minute, and then you're going to take 2 minutes, and you go stand by the door and you cool off. Mm-hmm. And then you go do it again, and you do it again, and you do it again. That will be so much more beneficial than doing nothing. Mm-hmm. And if anything, it's actually great for you because you're doing sprint intervals now, which are super beneficial for your training. So don't feel like if you're having hormonal issues, you can't show up. We can still try to help you through that. Mm-hmm. The hardest part is, like you said, sometimes you're just like, fuck it, I don't even care anymore. And you have to get over that hurdle. You have to be like, this is important enough. Just like if your kids wanted to go and do something or had to get to a sport or whatever, you're not gonna be like, nah, I'm in menopause, my kids don't matter anymore. You know, you have to do those things because they're important.
What's the line? You have to take care of yourself as if you are someone that matters.
Yeah.
As if you are someone that matters to you.
And again, back to the suffering a little bit now versus suffering a lot later. If you're not taking care of yourself now, you're going to put that burden on your kids later when they're taking care of you. And so you're putting the suffering on your kids, which is so much worse.
Yeah. And here's the thing. We are all only getting older.
Yeah.
Getting fitter, building capacity only gets harder as you get older. That's just the reality. I'm not saying that you can't do it. I'm just saying it gets harder. It gets slower. It gets, the risk tolerance goes down. We all know that. And so whatever work I don't do today that I think I'll work on that later, I'll attack that in the future. I'll get back to that next month, next year, next whatever. It's only going to get harder to do. And it's going to take longer and the results are going to be less effective than they were if you did it now.
Yeah.
And so when you're 50, you're going to be like, oh, I wish I would have got my shit together when I was 40. And when you're 40, you're like, I wish I would have got my shit together when I was 30. And so at whatever age you can decide you're going to get your shit together and keep it together, your future self will be so thankful that you did.
Yeah.
The further and further and further you push that problem into the future, the harder and harder and harder it gets to fix it.
Yeah. I wish I could go back to my youth and start over and redo and actually do some exercise. We all have our issues, right? My knees suck. And my choices are either I squat and occasionally it bothers my knees and it makes them uncomfortable, or I don't squat and I lose all of my capacity in my legs. And then down the road, I can't walk up the stairs without climbing up the railing or whatever. Mm-hmm. So for me, yeah, my knees aren't great, but I'm still going to squat. And as I get older, I can't really push maxes anymore. I have to be smart with the amount of squatting I can do. I've finally actually just started. I'm like 46 and after 18 years, I finally decided to start doing this. I'm actually doing some knee rehab stuff right now to try to fix the problems that I've had. Mm-hmm. And honestly, it all comes from back to me learning the ukulele. Like I dislocated this finger when I was in karate in, I don't know, grade 10 or 11 or something like that. And it's always been really sore and achy for years and years and years. And in learning to play the ukulele, my pain went away because I strengthened all those tendons and ligaments and everything. and now I don't have any pain. And so I'm like, okay, well, I started doing that when I was pretty old. So maybe if I actually do the stuff that I'm supposed to do, that physios want you to do, maybe it'll work. Yeah. And so I have been doing these slow, boring, not super fun, exciting movements to try to just rebuild my knees.
And as a kid, you were hard on your knees.
Yeah.
Trick, rollerblading, skateboarding, snowboarding like a crazy person.
And that's what I was about to say, is that instead of working out in my youth was spent jumping off of staircases and landing on my knees and just not wearing a helmet and being an idiot. And yeah, now I have bad knees. Go figure. So, and then when we first met, you could squat more than I could because I didn't have leg day. Leg day was rest day. And I did lots of bench and lots of curls and lots of all the bro stuff that we all like to do. And so now that stuff is good for me. I'm pretty strong with my pull-ups and I can do like gymnastic stuff and everything. And I have my strengths that I can continue to lean on and favor. But if I completely ignore all my weaknesses, they're going to continue to be weaknesses. And my strengths won't carry me through my weaknesses as I get older. Me having a really strong upper body is not going to help me not being able to walk up the stairs when I'm 85 years old.
Yeah.
So I know that I have to do it and I hate to do it. I don't like to squat because it's not a strong movement for me and I'm not PRing all the time and it's not super exciting, but I know how important it is for me to do. So I consistently do it.
Yeah. Would you say squatting is necessary?
Absolutely.
Is it fun for you?
No.
Do you do it anyway?
Yes.
Exactly.
And then every year in the open, I'm reminded of just how bad I am.
And it's so funny because you and I are the total opposite. We're like, I'm all squatting and then here comes the open with the pull-ups and the bar muscle ups. And I'm like, fuck my life.
Yeah.
You know, I'm so bad at those things, but I'm not good at pull-ups. Does that mean I shouldn't do them? They're not fun. I don't like them. Does that make them not necessary? No. Does that mean I get to skip them? No.
Yeah.
It just means I'm not very good at them.
We have to do the things that we don't want to do that make us better people. That's just all there is to it.
I think there's so many people that just expect a free pass because something is hard for them. And I'm like, so, right? People talk about different styles of nutrition. Oh, well, you know, we shouldn't even talk about that because like it's hard for people to stick to. I'm like, so does that make it not optimal? Does that make it not the thing we should be trying to achieve if we know it's the best for human health? Oh, it's hard, so let's not even try. What kind of attitude is that?
Yeah.
You know?
But look around, like that's the modern world. That's how it is out there. We've made things so comfortable for people that everybody is just living this life of luxury and they barely have to do anything. And now it is harming them. They're dying slowly and getting worse every year.
And to make a point about that, we've made life as comfortable and easy and safe as possible. And people are the most miserable they've ever been.
Yeah.
Mental health issues are the highest. Suicide is the highest. Like it's not working well for humanity to have no challenges and no difficulty. I think what we've just learned in this super modern era is that humans need challenge and they need to struggle against something. And through that, you build resiliency and fulfillment and all those kinds of things. So now that the default of life is just easy, pleasurable indulgences, we now have to work on purpose to create some discomfort, sauna and cold plunge, and some challenges, some physical challenges like going outside and doing things like CrossFit. And we have to look for social connections because they're not mandated in our lives. So we have to find community wherever you find that. And we now have to create those things for ourselves, where at no point in human history did we ever have to do those things on purpose. They were just part of the default of surviving as a human. So
yeah,
it is a little different maybe. And that's why people struggle with it, is perhaps we're just not equipped to have to do those things on purpose by default.
Yeah. I think if somebody is truly inspired to do something, they will do everything in their power to make it happen for themselves. And if we can just take a glimpse into the future and see how good or how bad our future can be based on the choices we're making now, I think people will be smarter in the decisions that they make. But nobody has enough foresight to plan ahead and be like, well, I haven't lifted a thing for 30 years now, and all of a sudden I can't lift my suitcase up. Like, that's a problem. You know, when you struggle to get out of a vehicle, that's a problem. When you haven't had a vegetable in 30 years, but you've had 38,000 Pop-Tarts, that's a problem. So we need to be like, okay, my actions now are going to come back. And you can either struggle a little bit every day now and do the hard thing, or you can struggle a lot in the future and it's going to suck.
And I feel like most of the future results are not nearly as random and unpredictable as people would like to think.
No.
Certainly there are some absolutely random things. A car T-bones you out of nowhere. It's totally random. It's not your fault. You had no choice in that matter. But most of what you're going to experience in the future is predictable and the result of your own choices. From things like, how did you sleep? How did you eat? How much alcohol did you consume? What was your exercise or, movement or activity like? What was your stress level? All those things feed into how things are going to go for you in the future. And honestly, even if something completely random, like getting hit by a bus, happens, you don't think that your experience of getting hit by a bus is going to be different if you're fit like you or me than if you're a person that's completely frail or decrepit?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Your experience of random challenges is going to be completely different if you have built up fitness, essentially. It's a hedge against sickness.
The old Mark Ripito quote, strong people are harder to kill and more useful in general.
Mm-hmm. We should bring back that shirt. That was one of our original CrossFit Brio shirts. It had that on the back. I think that was great. Like I said, I value my fitness, my muscle function, my bone density, my work capacity more than anything else. And I think a lot about how to incorporate activity and exercise in a way that preserves that for the long term, and really trying to be self-aware in the moment of not doing stupid things now that I regret later, basically. And CrossFit made fitness so fun. It made intensity easy to achieve, right? By just, Greg used to say, men will die for points.
Yeah.
So you make it a bit of a game, you turn fitness into a sport, you go 3, 2, 1, go, all together in a community, you crank the music. It's pretty easy to get people to work at intensity. It's also really easy to do too much volume.
For sure.
And volume, as in lots of reps and too much working out, is like a shiny object. Mm-hmm. And people get distracted or enticed by the shiny object of volume. Well, if one workout a day makes me pretty fit, 2 workouts a day must make me really fit. And it's really easy to get lured towards that shiny thing, like a moth to the light. But we know that intensity is what matters, but we're trying to achieve that, in our view, in the minimum effective dose. What's the least amount of exercise you need to do to achieve your goals for your health in the future? That's how I try to approach life. And I've managed to make it through almost 17 years of doing CrossFit pretty healthy. My joints are fine. My shoulders are great. My knees work well. My back's doing pretty okay. And I've discovered now, as like a person graduating into continuing to do CrossFit into my 40s, I have to manage myself and how I approach volume. And here's how I do it. Here's the things I've had to give up in order to still do CrossFit in my 40s. I no longer do kipping handstand push-ups. I only do strict, and I don't use a mat. And if I don't have the eccentric control to just tap my head on the ground and come back up, I need to stop what I'm doing. I'm doing too many reps above my capacity, and my neck will suffer. Mm-hmm. So if I kip or if I use a mat to allow myself to do more reps, those are junk reps. That's junk volume that wasn't benefiting me. If anything, it was net negative. I don't wear a belt in training ever. I save a belt for testing, and you don't get stronger through testing, so you only test a few times a year. So I only bring the belt out maybe 3 or 4 times a year. The rest of the time, my own core muscles need to support what I'm doing. And if I'm doing too much weight or too many reps that I can't support it, I need to stop what I'm doing. I don't squat with shoes on anymore. I don't do anything that interferes with my ability to feel the floor and balance myself properly. I don't often wear grips when I do things like toes to bar and pull-ups, because I feel like if my grip strength or my hand skin can't support what I'm doing, I'm just doing too many reps. And so therefore my shoulders are pretty healthy. I don't have bicep tendonitis. I don't have a slap tear. Mm-hmm. I don't have rotator cuff issues. I think I've realized about myself that that's my how to approach functional movements and keep myself safe. Mm-hmm. I run with barefoot shoes on, with the least support possible. And if I could run further, but it would require me to wear the big Kleenex box shoes, I'm running beyond the capacity of my tissues. And that runners do shit like that is why runners are the most injured athletes of anybody of any sport. Mm-hmm. Because this whole approach of slap some duct tape on it and keep going, whether it's knee sleeves or a belt or a mat on the floor or big cushy shoes, all those things, it's the shiny object. It makes you think, but I can do more work. Mm-hmm. I can go faster. I can get more reps. At what cost?
Yeah.
And so there's these three things that you got to balance: the safety of what you're doing. There's a risk to everything. How effective is it in getting you the fitness that you want, and the efficiency of how long does it take? And I think our approach at Brio is achieving a nice balance between all those three things. We want to keep you pretty safe. We want to get you pretty fit in a reasonable amount of time. Mm-hmm. There are other people with different priorities where they're like, fuck safety. I'm willing to take risks. I want to get really fucking fit and I want to get it now. Mm-hmm. And you can kind of do that stuff in like your 20s. You know, you can take more risks. You can train more volume. You can do that stuff. Or there's people that are like, I want to stay so safe. I'm going to only ever do low intensity elliptical machine. Mm-hmm. You're like, cool, but you're not going to get fit and it's going to take forever.
Yeah. I think, and the flip side of that is it's not that you should never use those things. I think they serve a purpose. And remember, we've learned what you've been talking about here because we've made all the mistakes. Mm-hmm. We absolutely had a period of time where more was better, and we would do like multiple workouts and lifting sessions and all this stuff every day, to the point where I remember being pretty banged up at some points where I would take painkillers ahead of my workout as part of my pre-workout routine, right? So we've made all the mistakes. We've had every imaginable piece of gear you can think of. Yeah. It's all been trial and error over these almost 20 years. So for me, I still wear grips occasionally, but I use it as a bit of a treat. So I don't use them every day. If I'm doing a workout with a high amount of volume, but it's still manageable for me, I'll wear my grips for the first half just to make sure I don't blow up my hands, and then I'll take them off and not use my grips for the rest, because I prefer not to use grips. I like the feeling better. Mm-hmm. So in the open 25.2, I wore them for the pull-ups and the chest to bars, and then I took them off for the bar muscle ups. And that's a safe amount of volume for me, that workout. So if I was going to do a workout with 150 pull-ups, like that's pushing the limits for sure for me. I can probably do it, but guarantee I'm going to wreck my hands. So I have to decide on that day, is it worth doing this full amount of volume, or am I better served reducing the volume to what's a reasonable amount for me? And things like that, like you can adjust the weight on the pull-ups. You can use a band, but if you're just a guy that does pull-ups all the time, you don't use a band generally. So sometimes you need to scale the volume. Same with lifting. Like you said, if you're just training, you probably shouldn't be using a belt. If you're testing, for sure, use a belt. And I will. On my last sets, if I'm going heavy, or as heavy as I can, I will wear a belt just to give that a little extra bit of oomph, but I don't train with my belt most of the time. Now, let's say you have been using all of those tools. You're knee sleeved, you're elbow sleeved, you're wearing a belt, a headband, glasses, everything, every workout. You can't just go all of a sudden back to normal training and take everything off, because you're reliant on that stuff now. So for me, when I used to do all this stuff, I would just occasionally use it and then occasionally not. And that way I could kind of titrate down away from the equipment, but not wreck myself. But the goal should be that those are things you use once in a while when you're pushing the limits a little bit and you just need a little bit of backup. If all the time, every workout you do, you're always wearing knee sleeves and a belt and everything, you're limiting your well-roundedness in your training. You're going to underdevelop your core because you're reliant on that belt. Your knee health might not be great because you're reliant on those knee sleeves. And when you're doing things in the real world, you're not wearing knee sleeves and you're not wearing a belt. And if you step down off a stair weird and wreck your patellar tendon because you weren't wearing knee sleeves, well, what good does that do you, you know? So I think it serves a purpose. And if you're doing some of your training with the gear and some of your training without, then great. You know, you're making reasonable choices. But if you're so heavily reliant on, like you said, bubble gum and duct tape to keep you together to be able to do any movements at all, I think you're hindering yourself.
And I think back to you talking about finally doing the unfun rehabby things that you should do for your knees. I think if you're always being like, oh, I'll just throw a belt on it, instead of addressing, why do you need that belt? Why does your back hurt? Oh, I'll just throw some knee sleeves on, instead of addressing, why do you have knee pain? What's missing functionally? And do you need to stretch? Do you need to do some strengthening moves, et cetera, et cetera? It's just bypassing maybe the need to do the unfun stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
And we all have the stuff that's unfun. I hate planks. I don't like doing planks. Planks suck. And it's because I'm not good at planks. Yeah. There's some people that love planks, and that's great. I'm the type of person that needs to do planks because it helps with my core stability when I'm doing my lifting that I suck at. So if you're always avoiding the stuff that is going to help you, you're tight, but you never stretch, or you've got a weak core, but you always wear a belt, you're never going to get any better. You're always going to be reliant on those things. Mm-hmm. So you just have to decide what's worth it. Where do I need to invest my time? And how important are these things that I'm doing to the long-term outcome of my fitness?
I think that question of how important are these things to me is good to think long-term. Like I said, my approach to CrossFit, just use that as the bucket for all of the physical training type stuff that I do, is long-term. And my goal is minimum effective dose. I'm trying to find what is the least number of reps that I can do, the least time I can squat a heavy barbell to maintain as much fitness as possible, as safe as possible. There are other things that you're going to do because you like them, that fulfill the fun part of your life. And so maybe the goal there isn't, I don't do this for my health and fitness. I do this because I freaking like it. That's how I feel about snowboarding. Yeah. Snowboarding is not that safe. It's probably risky for me. I'm not that athletic, but I just really like it. It's probably hard on my knees. It's probably, if anything, net negative for my long-term health and fitness, but it's such an enjoyment that I would never give it up. And other people feel that way about lots of running or lots of weightlifting or pickleball, or take your pick. The things that you're not doing objectively for your health and fitness, you're doing for enjoyment.
Yeah.
Whatever those things are for you that you want to do the most, you need to make sure that your technique is as impeccable as possible.
Yeah.
So if you just are going to run because you like running, then you better make sure you have the best running technique. You better make sure you address how to run properly. If you just really like lifting weights, Olympic weightlifting or powerlifting, and you're going to do a lot of it, let me tell you, you better make sure that your technique is impeccable. Because if you're doing lots of mediocre back squats at a pretty heavy weight for decades, that's going to catch up with you. Mm-hmm. If you're doing tons of miles of running with mediocre technique, let me tell you, that's going to catch up with you, etc. And I could keep repeating that for whatever you want to say: hiking, paddling, pickleball, like snowboarding. If you're being harder on your joints and muscles than was necessary simply because you never bothered to address how to do it really well, then you're just pushing problems into the future.
Yeah. If you want to continue to do the things that you enjoy, you have to learn how to move well while doing those things. But then you also have to do the things that you don't enjoy so that you have a foundation to work off of, so you can continue to do the things that you enjoy.
Amen. I think, okay, so if we're talking about CrossFit Brio, our take, CrossFit in general, long term, we're in this for the long term. We're building health and fitness across all the years of your life. It's like retirement planning. The earlier you start building wealth, building your future pension account, the better. If you start saving for retirement in your 20s, you're going to build a very solid future for yourself. If you wait till your 30s, it's good, but it's not as good as if you started in your 20s. If you wait until your 40s, it gets hard. 50s, it's harder. 60s, oh my God, now it's going to get really difficult to do. My dad's a financial advisor, and he always said, he can create the best retirement plan, the portfolio. They run these statistical analysis called the Monte Carlo analysis that shows, in all these different scenarios, what are the chances that this plan will work? And they try to do ones that achieve 100% success. And then he always has to sit down with his clients and say, listen, the biggest impediment to the success of this plan is you. And it's the decisions you make when the market turns down. So when your portfolio goes down at some point, which I guarantee you that it will in the course of a 30-year investment strategy, at some point the markets will dip. The decisions you make when the markets are down are going to be the greatest inhibitor or supporter of the success of this plan. If things go down and you panic and sell everything when it's down, the plan will fail.
Right.
And that's the financial equivalent of the lifespan of your fitness. The success or failure of this long-term approach to your fitness hinges on largely the choices you make when things are not going well. And so if you're injured, or you're pregnant, or you're postpartum, or you're menopausal, or whatever are your challenges you're being faced with, the future is going to depend on what you do when things are going poorly.
Don't panic sell.
Don't panic when the markets are down.
Yeah.
You need to hold strong to the plan, even if it's much harder to do, which is what we've been saying in this whole thing. You need to stick to the plan. You need to keep doing the plan, even when it's hard, even when the rewards aren't immediately there, right? You need to keep coming to the gym. You need to do the other things you can do, et cetera, like we've said. So the greatest inhibitor to your long-term success is you.
Yeah.
And so when things are down, you need to make the logical, right, smart decisions to create the best future for yourself.
We're all going to suffer. Don't do all your suffering at the end of your time.
Yeah.
Suffer a little bit every day and your end days will be so much better.
And that's just like putting those dollars into your savings account for the future.
Yeah.
And compound interest works. And the earlier you do it, the better.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're facing challenges or when you're facing challenges, just stay focused on the long-term goal so that you don't have to live with regret in the future.
There you go. Pro tip.
All right. Thanks, guys. See you in the next one.